Publisher of the New York Times says the paper's coverage of President Biden is making the White House extremely upset. Byron York is here to talk about it. Morning, Byron. Nice to have you back on here. A.G. Salzberger said he is a historically unpopular incumbent and the oldest man to ever hold this office. We've reported on both of these realities extensively, and the White House has been extremely upset about it. I guess he offered that. He wasn't really asked it. Right, Byron?
Well, look, it's not surprising that the White House is extremely unhappy with portrayals of President Biden, not just in the New York Times, which is certainly not an anti-Biden publication, but everywhere in the press and everywhere people can actually watch the president, because he's got two really bad numbers for re-election: 81, which is his age, and 40, which is his job approval rating, the Real Clear Politics average. And that he's really fighting an uphill fight right now. And the problem for the White House is it's not that people are reading the New York Times and saying, boy, I guess Joe Biden's really gotten old. They're watching him and coming to that conclusion with their own eyes.
Okay, so here are some of the headlines, right, in the Times. Democrats in key states worry Biden could be a drag on their races. Why the age issue is hurting Biden so much more than Trump. 8 words and a verbal slip put Biden's age back at the center of 2024. Which raises then the question, I guess we'll find out, State of the Union, they're getting amped up for that, which raises the question, if it's Biden versus Trump, will there be a debate? So the ladies at The View are having this out, okay? Each is sort of setting up their verbal wager. Watch here.
Biden can lose, and he can lose in a debate. Trump will not. The people supporting Trump will support him whether he's there or not.
But that's
Biden makes one mistake, and people that are undecided are out.
Do know he's also, if Biden flubs, they'll be all over him. If Trump flubs,
but if he doesn't show up, they'll be all over. My caution to Biden is, I get why he maybe wouldn't, but Donald Trump will lean into the narrative of he's hiding because he's not up to it, and voters will believe that if he doesn't show up.
Yes, I guess we got 7 or 8 months to debate this one, don't we, Byron?
Well, you got kind of a focus group there, and clearly they're scared of Joe Biden being on such a high wire act for a long time in a debate with a very hostile opponent on the other side. I think that the bottom of this is this idea of the comparison between Trump and Biden here. Now, I've said a lot of times that Trump is too old to be president too. I mean, he will be 82 years old at the end of a term if he were to win. But in terms of just a binary contest, if you look at Donald Trump on one side and Joe Biden on the other side, Trump appears far more energetic, far more vigorous. If you've watched his rallies, he goes on for an hour or an hour and a half. They're real shows of energy. Yes, he has made some gaffes. He referred to Nancy Pelosi several times as Nikki Haley in one of his rallies, so he's not without gaffes at all. But clearly when the public is trying to say, well, who is the more energetic, vigorous, physically durable of the two candidates, it's clearly Trump right now.
You can see that plain as day. Yes, indeed. Byron, thank you. Nice to see you back on the show today with us today. Byron York.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.